Now, it's time for the breakfast review, and I'm joined in the studio by Dr. Benedicta Yayiwa-Fosu-Mensah. She's a member of the NDC communications team. Good morning. Susan Edwa-Mankwa is a member of the National Interest Movement. Susan, good morning. And Abiba, please correct me with your name, Abibata Shani Mahama. She's the CEO for Maslock. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're welcome. You're all looking very nice this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know if you were listening to our conversation on our take, but I want to pick your thoughts quickly on that, very quickly before we move on to the substantive topics. And that's the various CSOs that are asking for the president to cut down the size of his government. It doesn't appear that the president will do that anytime soon, right? I mean, you are a representative of this government.
Yes, I am.
Should we expect a cut down in the size of government?
Well, I can't speak for the president, especially when he hasn't spoken publicly. But what I know is that the president is a listening president, and whatever discussions he's having right now, he's putting everything into perspective, and at the right time, the right decisions will be made.
Do you think that we need to cut down the size of government?
Well, I don't know what's the size of government, the correlation between the size of government and what we are going through right now.
You don't know?
No, I'm saying I don't see the correlation in the sense that the first term, with the size of government, which was even larger than what we have now, there were so many deliverables that we were able to achieve. But this time, what I understand and what every Ghanaian knows is that it's a global thing. Ghana is not on an island. So whatever is experienced elsewhere, we don't expect Ghana to have something different. So with the size of government, yes, that is the discretion of the president. But I seriously don't think that it has any correlation with regards to our current challenges, especially so when it is a global one and not limited to only Ghana.
Why did the president cut down on the size of his government when he was getting into his second term?
Well, I think that for the first time, some of the ministries that he set up, they were set up to do certain things, like I mentioned, in terms of deliverables. And those deliverables were more or less achieved in the first term. So the second term, I don't think that he saw the need to keep them because they had already gone through whatever purpose that they were set up to achieve. Yeah.
Okay. So all the concerns, you say that the president is a listening
president.
He's
a listening president.
All the concerns about, this large size of government,
yeah.
You say you don't see the correlation, but I will tell you,
yeah.
These are ministers, many of them, many deputies,
yeah.
For what some will see a duplication of roles, who are getting paid with the taxpayers' money. Definitely, a cut in that size will go a long way to help all of us.
I'm not sure about duplication of roles because each ministry has a different role to play. So if you tell me duplication of roles, I don't know what exactly you mean by that. I know ministries have different roles to play. So in terms of duplication, I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have 2 deputies.
Yes, I do.
You don't think that you can do the work alone with the directors that you have?
Well, I think the 2 deputies also have roles to play in addition to myself.
Yeah. Can't you share those roles among your directors?
If the circumstance given was what it was,
but if
why
they
not?
weren't there, would you be able to function with your directors?
I would function with my directors, but their inclusion is also necessary because they also add to the deliverables. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Doc, your thoughts on this quickly?
Okay, thank you very much. Greetings to our cherished viewers and my people in Central Tong. I salute you this morning. I would want to say that the government, on the contrary, is not a listening government. In fact, the solutions that we need as a country to come out of these wars or these disasters we have found ourselves have been given to this government. I remember very well when these issues started coming up. A few organizations, including NDC as a party, came out to kind of give warning sign to the government what we are heading towards. But unfortunately, they did not listen. I remember very well the issue of borrowing, excessive borrowing. Warnings were given to the government that we were borrowing too much as far as our debt levels were concerned, and the fact that they have to cut down on borrowing. They did not listen. Now, when we were almost at the verge of, getting into the ditch, again, they were advised that the government should go to IMF. They said no, they have the solutions to make sure that they are able to turn the economy around. And so there was no need for them to go to IMF at the time that it was suggested to them. Not too long, they had to run to IMF. But now we can see that even though we've gone to IMF, but we're having even challenges in getting some agreement with IMF because we did not go at the right time. We have found ourselves at a very awkward or a very difficult situation, making it difficult to come up with a program at the moment. Again, it is just, I don't want to use the word common sense, but I will say that it is just a normal thing that as human or as individuals, when you find your economic level or your finance level being lower than your expenditure, all you need to do is to reduce your expenditure, is to cut down on certain items. And again, there's been a lot of calls for this government to cut down on certain expenditure. For example, reduce your the size of government. You need to also reduce the number of foreign travels. You need to reduce or put a stop to this private jet renting. You need to also find a way to cushion Ghanaians as far as the fuel price are concerned. We are at the moment getting a lot of windfall as far as our export of crude oil is concerned. Use some of these windfall to cushion Ghanaians. We've also mentioned or suggested the fact that there are certain taxes on these petroleum products that you can find a way of either reducing or you cut these taxes. All these are solutions that have been given to this government.
But these are, there's many of the things you have said that have been done. The president has cut the salaries of his ministers and appointees by 30%. I haven't seen the president travel in the luxurious. I'm not doing her job for her, but I'm just saying that.
Yeah, but this 30%, it's just a statement. Where is that 30% that they have cut?
So
where is the money going to?
You haven't seen evidence.
What is that money
Has your salary
been
cut by 30%?
Yeah, we are not a government that will...
No.
Yeah.
Has your salary been cut?
Exactly.
Since when?
Since the time it was announced.
When?
It was a big, I don't remember the exact month, but when
you received salary, so you should know. So this last month, have you received your salary?
Of course, and that since it was announced and it was asked to implement, the reduction took effect. But if you ask me now, I can't remember the month. But what I'm saying is that the president will not say something and do something.
But you know why what she's saying is important.
In addition,
because there are people who have come here, and I have asked them the same question, whether their salaries have been cut.
Yeah.
And they don't know where they can't show.
Why won't they show? Because if I knew how much I was taking. Yes, I just
now can I make my point?
Go
the
ahead,
fact
quickly.
is also that look at this our population. We have roughly, let's say, 31 million Ghanaians, and looking at the number of ministers we have currently, especially at a time that we find ourselves in crisis, it's just, for example, let me just give, for example, you go to Ministry of Local Government, let me say, we have about 3 deputies. And then you ask yourself, do we really need that number of deputies in that ministry? Now, we also have a situation that, governments try to, I remember the 2000, in their first term, they had, I think, 126 ministers. And when we talked about they reducing the size, what we've realized is that some of the ministers, though they have been reduced, but they find a way of either pushing them in certain departments. So though they are not ministers, but they are still withdrawing salary in terms of they finding themselves either in the Flagstaff House or in certain departments. And all these are not helping us as a country. Look, we are in a crisis, or we are in a situation that as a people, we should not have gotten ourselves there at the first place. How can a government within a time span of 6 years, you bring the debt level of Ghana from 120 million to almost 120 billion to almost 400 plus billion Ghana cedis? And as we are speaking now, our debt to GDP is almost 104%. And this is unacceptable. For the president to still think that, oh, give me time to think, give me time to put things in place. You are telling Ghanaians that, look, prepare because we are not in good time. Yet government is not prepared to tighten its own belt. Government is not prepared, or government is not showing that remorse. As at now, we expect until you do these things, we can't talk about any people coming on board to solve the economic crisis.
Okay.
At the moment, for example, during the NDC era, when there were some challenges, I remember we called for Senchi Forum, and all was to just bring people on board. That is a mark of humility.
You asked
I have a problem.
the finance minister to be sacked, but also in your time, there were calls for the finance minister then, Seteka, to be sacked. You didn't sack him.
But the reality is that we should not be doing this kind of comparison.
But you just mentioned, you just compared, but when it doesn't favor you, we shouldn't do the comparison.
Just wait. When NDC had problem, we were not where we are today. We are talking about 104% of
but problems are problems, Doc.
It is not problem.
If you do comparison, I will compare.
NDC,
I will take you back also.
NDC era, we had problem. People complain about fuel. But how much was fuel at that
time?
But
at the time when there were calls for Seteka to be sacked,
very well. The vice president at that time was complaining about city depreciation.
But I'm saying that you say that until the president sacks the finance minister, the calls for people to come on board to support will not happen. And I'm telling you that at your time too, there were calls for your finance minister to be sacked. If you didn't sack him.
Listen. If the call is justified, yes.
So his time wasn't justified.
It wasn't
this time
justified.
is justified.
This time is justified because any time we borrowed, our finance minister and his family, including the family of our president, benefited.
Okay.
And so there was no edge not to borrow, because the more I borrow, the more the country become poorer, the more they become richer. Meanwhile, our president then flag bearer promised us that he was going to protect the public purse.
Okay.
But what have we seen?
Okay. Susan.
You know, you can ask, I don't know what Abiba started talking about personal. This is the first time I've met her. I've never met her in my life. So it can never be personal. I don't know her. I mean, even if I met her again, I probably would even recognize her. You understand? She sits there as a government who might have... Let me finish. She sits there as a government representative. So when I direct my thing to her, I'm not direct to her as a person.
Please hold on.
You understand?
Please hold on for me. She doesn't like the expression "she sits there."
It's derogatory.
So it's not derogatory. No, but you don't know what derogatory is. Because I really can be. Because you in the term are trying to be insulting to me. No. She's trying to be insulting to me. But I'm trying to explain to her.
But she finds it derogatory when you say she sits there. So can you?
So what should I say?
She's on this show, right?
No. So she's on this show. She's on this show.
She's on this show.
Is that better? Okay.
No,
that's fine. She's on this show. She's on this show as the government representative.
Just make your point.
So when I make reference to her, I don't make reference to her as a person. I make reference to her as the government, as a representative of the government. If I sound contemptuous, then I'm contemptuous of the government, not of her, because I don't know her. I've never met her before. This is the first time I'm meeting her this morning. You understand? So, as a government rep, what you need to develop is a thick skin, because you will get the heat. If you can't take the heat, you get out of the kitchen. And as a government representative, our will be against you. If I'm irritated, it's not against her as a person. I don't know her. I'm irritated with a government that is insensitive because she represents it. She tells me that my issues are trivial and that I'm trivializing everything. I'm an ordinary Ghanaian. That I realize that my salary cannot pay my rent, buy me petrol, feed my children, and keep a roof over my head. You understand? And so I am upset and agitated that the people that I have put into place to do the things that I cannot do as an individual, I put a collective government into place to do those things. They tell me and brush me off and tell me that I'm being personal and that I'm trivial and that that is upsetting. You understand? That is not being sensitive. Even if it is one Ghanaian that is upset about the things, you as being a government, you must listen to that and say, where is it that I'm going wrong, that I have to make sure that my people that are born here are the happiest in this place. Not upset that people want to leave. So when you come and you tell me that, I'm podcast, it's a right, and that other presidents, and yet you in the same breath, you tell me that COVID, Russian, Ukraine, no president has experienced it, but this president who experiences must also enjoy the things that other presidents who didn't have the same circumstances, he must enjoy it because it is his right, not a privilege. Really? You saw the convoy of cars. It is his right, not a privilege. I mean, this is the attitude of the government speakers, and we sit back and we cringe and we are sad and we are like, wow, the people that we put into place, this is how they treat us. They tell us that they are personal. It's personal to them, and then we are outside. I mean, that is so sad. That really is pathetic. You understand? Look, we as ordinary Ghanaians, we want a government that will make our life better. A government that gives us hope for a brighter future. You understand? A future for our children. You get it? When we sit down and we look at the things that are happening, we don't see it. What are the steps that they've taken? You know, the vice president said, if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. When they talk about the beginning and then the numbers were good and there was growth, and was there development? Because growth is really different from development. Okay. And the numbers can look good, but it is not felt on the ground. And of course, if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate would expose you, and it's been exposed. Okay. And that means that whatever numbers we were seeing before, the fundamentals were still weak.
Okay.
Had the promise that they made to change the fundamentals, has it done? Look, when a push came to shove, Ike Achampon said, Operation Feed Yourselves. And we fed ourselves. And we ate what we could, and the rest that we couldn't, we canned and we sent out. Has there been a call like that? Look, the calls encouraging us to do Made in Ghana. What things have they done? Do you know that seed, we are talking about Ministry of Agri. The people that produce seed for the Ministry of Agri, ask them, call them. Have they been paid? Have they been paid? Will they be able to produce enough seed for the coming year? You know, and when we sit down and somebody says that my issues are trivial, and
okay,
it's so sad.
All right.
Because the ordinary Ghanaians' issues are trivial in terms of putting food on the table.
Okay.
So if you are able to put food on the table and I'm not, and I'm complaining about it, and you tell me that it is trivial, that actually breaks my heart.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on to other topics. So you already brought in the education conversation, so we're going to go on from there.
Before then, can I just make a quick...
No,
not to her
once
response.
You do,
I want to,
everyone else deserves a rebuttal.
Not to any of them.
No, I'm sorry. Let's just move on. So there appears to be some turmoil in the education sector because from Friday, 3 teacher unions have been on strike. They are angry over the appointment of Dr. Eric Nkanta as Director General of the Ghana Education Service. And because of that, they have decided not to teach. On Monday, there was a meeting between the 3 teacher unions, I beg your pardon, and the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Labour. But we are being told that that conversation or meeting ended inconclusively. Yesterday, there was supposed to be another meeting at 2 o'clock. I don't know if that meeting happened, but I don't have the details of that yet. But this is where we are. We understand that there's supposed to be another meeting today at 9 a.m. We will bring you details of that on Newsroom at 11:30, so you shouldn't miss it. But, you know, I'm going to start with you, Abibata. What is the challenge in just letting this man go? Because do you think that the appointment of one person is worth several teachers abandoning the classroom?
Yeah, first of all, I want to empathize with the teachers who are not too happy with the appointment. But I also want to state that I think there have been some engagements behind the scenes, like you rightly put out. Yesterday they were supposed to meet, and this morning, I think they are supposed to meet the National Labour Commission. Your question as to why is it difficult to let one person go, I think as a country we have to be careful in order not to set certain precedences. A president appoints someone, and then teacher unions, yes, they have concerns. I think that even dealing with the concerns, I don't think strike is the best option for them to have embarked on. Thinking about the pupils who are supposed to be in school, I think that they could have still put their demands across and still attend to the students or pupils that are in school. But in all of this, I think there are some consultations, there are some engagements behind the scenes, and I believe that by the end of whatever discussion that they are going to have with the GES and then the teacher unions together with the National Labour Commission, is going to be a solution. With the appointment of the Director General, this is somebody who was already working at the ministry. Initially, what I remember, what they said about him was that he wasn't a teacher. But now I'm glad that they are shifting from that stance to saying that, yes, he could have taught, but he wasn't a professional teacher. But to me, I don't think that there is something difficult about teaching, or maybe in the educational sector, that maybe Dr. Eric Ankansa may not be able to handle. But once people are aggrieved, we cannot say that to hell with them. We can't do that. And that is why there's the importance of the dialogue that is going on. And I believe that the Minister of Education, together with GES and all other stakeholders, would meet these teacher unions, and then we meet an amicable solution so that the students or pupils will not suffer because of this strike. Yeah.
Doc.
Well, I'm really wondering why we are where we are. Yes, it is true that the president has the power to appoint the person he deems fit to certain position, because probably the person believes in their ideology and the way they do things. However, when it comes to the issue of Director General of GES, this is a rank within the GES service, and it is required that before you become a Director General, you would have gone through the ranks. I mean, from a teacher and all the ranks within the GES to be appointed as Director General. So I am so surprised that the government, with all the teachers, cannot not have the figures. If it is about people who are loyal to him or people who are NPP members, let me put it that way, that they want to appoint, is he saying that within GES he could not find anyone with that qualification to fit that position? If that is the case, we want to talk about it. Now, this person that we are talking about, I'm told he worked within the sector. Now, I believe he was part of the government in taking decisions as far as GES and how the educational system is concerned. He was part of it. In fact, we saw a total mess up in the educational system. As we are talking now, I think Ghana is facing what I'll refer to as the 3E crisis. We have economic crisis, educational crisis, and environmental crisis. The educational crisis the educational system as at now is a total mess. And those were the people who were in charge of our affairs and have brought us here. In fact, they were people who advised government to change our curriculum, or the educational curriculum. They did change it. And for 3 years, there were no textbooks. 3 years, teachers were just going to the internet and seeking whatever material they can find to teach their children. I remember very well, there were times my child come and like, oh, they've asked us to go and read this. No textbooks. So it's like, go and read it, find it where? I'm always fighting with them over my phone, or they want to use the computer to go to the net and search for information, to do even their homework. No textbook. These were people who were in charge of affairs. Now this same person, after messing this up, he wants to now come ahead.
Well, but Doc, we don't know for a fact if she was, if he, I beg your pardon, was part of the management that made those decisions. One, and really, the past Director General, I would say, was an experienced professional teacher, right? He was still there, and the mess happened. The teachers have agitated during his period. We saw all of that. They had several concerns. Even as a professional teacher was there. So if the concern is that they need a professional teacher with experience, they've had that over the years. They've still had challenges. So if somebody comes and the person is not a professional teacher with the kind of experience that they talk about, why don't they give the person a chance?
So you are working with an organization or an institution. You were here before some people came. And I believe that even within this institution, there are procedures in either elevation or promotion. And one day, I know that every desire of an individual that's working in an institution is to head that institution. And I believe that as you are here, maybe one day you would even want to be maybe the manager of, I don't know your rank now, but you want to be the manager of this institution. The same way the teachers, as they queue in line in terms of ranks and promotion, they also aspire or wish that one day they'll become Director General.
That's fine.
It is just
so then
so
the line of arguments is really about the promotion basis, but not about the competency or not, or because I speak to some of the teacher unions, they say that they want somebody who has experience to handle their affairs for them. And I wonder, like I asked you earlier, they've had people with experience in the past, they've had their problems. What shows that this time something else cannot be done? After all, we've seen persons who are doesn't have experience in certain fields, heading certain in organizations and institutions in this country, both under your government and under this NPP.
It is not about competence or whether you are experienced or not. When you look at our universities, there is no way, I'm yet to find any of the university, that they will bring somebody who is not a lecturer to come and be VC of a university. I haven't seen it anyway. So why is it different when it comes to GES? Why is it different?
Okay.
So, for me, I think I support the teacher union.
So you support the children loitering as a result of their wanting
it is not about the children loitering, and that is why the government should be concerned and respond. This attitude of a president giving a national address and mocking at us. Open your eyes and see. You will see a president doing propaganda at a time when women are still giving birth on a bed floor because of lack of beds. When children are sitting on the floor to write.
That has been in existence even when you were in government.
But do you know the number of schools NDC removed from under trees?
Have they gone back to under the trees since this government
took
over?
Of course, NDC cannot do everything. So
yeah,
wherever we
you
ended,
see, I have a challenge when you say, look, there's a problem that needs to be tackled. But when you say that there were schools under, there are schools under trees. There were schools under trees under your government.
Yes,
you did something to take care of it.
You never saw the visionary John Mahama talking and telling Ghanaians, open your eyes, you will see. Look, if there is development, if indeed they have improved on whatever they are talking about, GDP and our growth and things, we should feel it in our pockets.
All right.
Look, yesterday I was watching a program.
Yeah.
And look, per our income, we have lost the value of our money to the tune of almost 50%. And here we have government communicators talking about the fact that we have done so well. We've grown this from that to that. Look, I think that it is time for the government to listen. You cannot bring someone outside the structure of GES to come and head, especially when these people were in charge and things were getting worse. Things were getting from bad to worse and they didn't even see it coming. Okay. How can you develop or change a curriculum without having
You know
textbooks?
For a fact that this Mr. Eric Cancer was part of leadership or management. You know that for a fact?
The fact is that some of them were serving as advisors. Okay. We know it for a fact. That some of them serve as advisors. And if they advise the government and we are in a ditch, how can those people then become the leaders of that institution?
Thank you.
So I back the teacher union. And I think that the president should do the needful by listening to them and not saying that students are loitering around and so they should go back to the classroom.
Susan, please come in.
So I've always heard they say that he's had a stint at teaching. They've never said he's never taught before. I've heard all of them. I heard the Nagrats people say, look, he's had a stint at teaching. Me, I've had a stint at teaching. Probably a lot of people have had a stint at teaching. National service, they send you somewhere to go and teach. That doesn't necessarily make you a teacher and an expert enough in the system. You understand? They are saying that he's not fit for purpose. Why? They probably have made an assessment of him when he was a special assistant. If you have anything to offer, they probably would have, or if he had anything to offer, they probably would have seen it when he was a special assistant and say, oh, this is a very brilliant special assistant and, he has ideas and he has our welfare at heart. They probably would not have been kicking against it. I don't think they are just coming out of the blue to say that because he didn't rise through the ranks and everything. That may be an issue. But if he had something to offer them, they would have seen it in him as a special assistant. They have made a determination that this person has nothing to offer us and we don't think he's good enough for the office.
But Susan, how do they just look at someone
are they looking at him? They're just looking at him. No, sir. Are you saying they are just looking at him? He came from nowhere. Tell me he was not a special assistant to the minister.
Was he?
He was.
To which minister?
To this minister, to the Minister of Education.
Okay. When?
I don't know. He probably still was before his appointment. You understand? So it wasn't that they are protesting that you pick somebody off the streets and have come to put him there. That's not what they're saying. You get it? So, yes, the issue about somebody rising to the rank, somebody being a professional, knowing whatever. And you can make the arguments that you made that you still had a professional there. But probably they'll prefer to have a professional there because he would understand them better. He may not stop the mess, but he may understand their issues better because he has risen to the ranks. I think that it is important that they give, because for them to actually then go on strike, that means they really, really do not want this man. And I think that must be taken into consideration. We don't like our children running about. But it's not a matter of posterity. It's that posterity, every issue should be judged on a case-by-case basis. And if it calls that this has to change, yes. It doesn't mean that every time people call for a change, that has to happen. But you need to look at the bigger picture in terms of, in weighing it, is this worth it? that these people, that your children will suffer for it because of one person, because I want to show that, I'm in charge and posterity, they say, no. Sometimes you give in so that you win in a different way. So this issue where the teachers, I think that the teachers are not irrational beings. 3 unions will not just irrationally decide that somebody is not good enough for us, and so we need to call our people off their classrooms and let children suffer for it. It can easily be resolved, and I think that the government needs to resolve it as quickly as possible and let the children go back to the classroom.
All right. Thank you so much. We have to go, unfortunately. I know that you've written a lot of things down that you want to rebut. There's no time. But next week, we will be back here. I want to see the same sets next week. Thank you. Susan Edua-Mankwa is a member of the National Interest Movement. Dr. Benedict Ayayura Fusumensa is a member of the NDC Communications team. And Abibata Shani Mahama is a CEO for Maslow. Stay with us. After the break, we have more.